Welcome to the Dateable AF podcast, because women dating women is wild, wonderful, and occasionally a disaster. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Kyle, a therapist in private practice.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Howell, researcher extraordinaire.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AFterparty episode for E14, where we were talking about lesbian bed death.
Ooh, hot topic.
Ooh, we got so many emails and texts and questions and comments from you guys, and we love it because we know we obviously must have struck a nerve.
Yes, we did.
Women out there. Yep. I wanted to start, though, by talking about a question we got regarding the after party for last week's episode. We were talking about how sometimes lesbians will pursue a relationship with a straight woman when there's really no chance that that straight woman is romantically interested in her. And I gave us an example of one of my clients who had been pursued by a lesbian, and this client was straight. And we got a question from a listener who said that she had been married to a man and is now single and has been spending a lot of time with her best friend, and she feels like she's developed romantic feelings for her best friend. She thinks about her a lot. And what she took from our episode was that it's a bad idea for straight women to enter a relationship with a lesbian. And I wanted to clear that up because that was not what I meant at all.
No.
If you have been in a heterosexual relationship and you find yourself attracted to a woman, you have full permission to explore that. If you're single and in the dating bee and wanting to check that out, historically, women's sexuality is believed to be more fluid, so that women can be attracted to a wide variety of people. And so, our culture teaches us that heterosexual relationships are the norm. So I think most women fall into heterosexual relationships as a rule of thumb. But if you're finding yourself attracted to your best friend and you think there's mutual attraction there, then yeah, you should absolutely give yourself permission to explore that. We were talking more about it from the other side, where lesbians pick unavailable people, one of those groups being straight women. So yes, go for it. And please let us know how it turns out.
At making sure that the other person is also, you might want to talk to them about it.
Before you just make a move. Yes.
Right.
Yes. I think in this case, the woman said that her best friend is lesbian. So
yes, she is, but it doesn't mean that that her head is in that space with her friend.
True that.
Yeah. So just saying that, but that there isn't any other reason not to do it unless the other person's not into it.
Yes, absolutely. So let's move on to talking about some of the questions and comments we got about lesbian bed death. I can start by talking about one of the things we discussed in our episode was that this phenomenon is not particular to lesbians, that people's sex lives tend to change over the life of a relationship, regardless of if they're in a same-sex or opposite-sex relationship. And I got a comment from one of my adorable friends who said that she and her boyfriend just moved in together about a month ago, and that she's already noticed a change in their frequency of sex just since they moved in together because they're together every day. So she was relating to our episode, even though she does not technically fall into our target audience.
Yeah. And I think a few people commented on the myth. We were not dispelling the myth. We were talking about was that there is a big difference between what happens with women versus what happen queer women versus heterosexual couples. And we were trying to show that there isn't as big a distinction and difference, and not that bed death in general is a myth, because bed death in general over a period of time can be true.
Yes, it does happen. For sure. And I think also that culturally men are taught to be the initiators and the aggressors. And so if you have a man in the relationship and he's been socialized to be the initiator, then it's more likely that he will be the one initiating sex. And if there are two women in a relationship, it's less likely that there's someone who's going to feel driven culturally to initiate sex. So I think that's one other reason. So do you want to talk, Rachel, about an email we got from someone who is experiencing that in her relationship?
I do. One thing that I wanted to put out there that we actually didn't talk much about it at all in the episode, but it's worthy of bringing up is there are also people have varying sex drives, and that plays out in relationships too. If you are naturally a really sexual person, and you actually partner with somebody who isn't very driven in that way, then that's going to cause a difference. And that doesn't have anything to do with lesbian bed death. That just has to do with the fact that you're probably not going to have, for the person who wants a lot of sex, you're just probably not going to have a lot of sex right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's different than what we were talking about. We were kind of generalizing that with the assumption that both people at some point had a very strong drive and or a very compatible sex life, let's say, that was quite active. And then over time it drops off to almost nothing or nothing. That's different than having two different levels of compatibility where probably from the get-go. And so to our caller, or our person that actually sent us some information, is I think that may be more the category of what was going on, is that she's just in a position after 6 months is not a timing necessarily for lesbian bed death. I mean, if
you want to give some context about the email itself so that our listeners know what we're talking about?
Sure. Yes. So she was talking about the fact that she is in a relationship, a long-term relationship, where it basically sex fell off after 6 months, and that she's pretty frustrated about that. Obviously, who wouldn't be? I feel bad for her. I do.
Yes, we have a lot of compassion for you.
That's right. Your sex sisters are reaching out to you right now. It should not fall off after 6 months. And so she obviously pretty frustrated, rightfully so, that but it sounded like, based on the information, that there's sort of a history of it being when it was active, very mainstream, sort of, as she put it, wham bam, thank you ma'am, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which again is outside the norm or typical lesbian sex too, right?
Sure. Yes, I think all couples, lesbian or otherwise, tend to get in routines where we tend to have sex the same way because it's easier rather than going for something that's novelty. So yes, I would say that's not specific to lesbians, but that can happen over time in a couple. But this particular person said that she was feeling, she had gotten herself in shape and she's feeling good in her body, and she really would like to have an active sex life again. And her partner has basically just said, I'm not interested. And so what advice would you give to someone who's in that situation?
That is a tricky thing, because if you've lost all attraction to your person, man, I don't know about that. I feel like that can be tough. Although, think about this. Don't you think that there are a ton of couples that have stayed together over years and years, well, stayed together through time, that at some point probably lost attraction to one another, but they made a commitment for other reasons to stay together? There was something else. And
Yes.
And so, to me, the greater question is, what's most important to you, and what do you have to have in order to stay in? And I don't think you need to be ashamed that if you need that kind of intimacy, then that begs a question.
Yep. This is a statement that I make to almost all couple clients that I see. I am a believer in getting happy where you are. So if you can find a way to get happy with your current partner, I think that is the best choice for you. And if you can't get happy, and maybe sex for this person is a big part of being happy, and maybe this means you can't get happy in the relationship. If you can't get happy, I don't believe in forcing yourself to stay in a miserable relationship. But are there some other ways you could find happiness? This one is a little tricky because we talked a few episodes ago about you saying what are the top 3 things you need to get from your partner. And you excluded sex from this, but sex is one of those things that for most people, they're not going to agree to you getting that need met outside the relationship. Not to say that that doesn't happen, because some couples do have an arrangement that they agree to that. But for most couples, that is a line that gets drawn of you can't have sex with someone outside of our relationship. And so if that's the case, I think you have to decide how to prioritize sex. Can you have sex with yourself and be satisfied? Can you put sex on the back burner and just agree that you're not going to have that, but you've got enough other good stuff with this person and you want to stay in? It's a tricky situation.
Yeah, it really is. And if I remember correctly, this person said they had been to therapy. I mean, they had done I think a number of things, and she felt she was just stuck in that situation because they had done the typical things that we might say, go to couples therapy, do some things like that. So, I mean, if you're not going to suggest a throuple or an open relationship, then I think you're right. You have to figure out whether or not you can find a way to stay in and be happy and get your needs met in some ways that work within the confines of the relationship.
Yeah.
But this is a great topic for our daters, again, because these individuals are deep in a relationship, and I don't know if this was a very important conversation that they had in the beginning, but it really emphasizes the need to be sure that you're at least open from the beginning with somebody about whether or not you're on the same page with your values with sex and how important it is for you to maintain it, even if you have to do some things like schedule it once a week or whatever, that there's a commitment to the possibility of that, right?
Yes, for sure. And you, just to address what you said about having a throuple, that partner doesn't even want to have sex with one person. So she's not going to want to invite another person into the relationship. The time to invite another person into your relationship is not when you're having problems. Let me just say that as an idea that if you think that's going to fix it, I'm sad to tell you that you are mistaken.
It's kind of like deciding to have a baby, right?
Exactly. What would fix our problems? Let's have a baby or a throuple, either one. No matter who that third person is that comes through the door, whether it's a baby or a throuple, it's not going to work out for you if you're trying to make yourself happy that way.
Maybe she's a voyeur. Maybe the one's a voyeur, it could work.
It could happen. It could.
Probably not.
We'll ask her to follow up with more information about that.
Oh my God. I hope her partner's not listening to this podcast.
Yes, if the shoe fits. What did we say? You're so vain. You probably think this podcast is about you.
True.
So yeah, well, we were thrilled to get so much engagement with you guys this week. So please keep your questions and comments coming. We really, really like hearing from you, and we love addressing your comments on our podcast. So don't forget to like us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please follow us on Instagram at Dateable AF. And as always, thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
And remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of queer dating, don't text your ex. Stay dateable
AF.